When we talk about love, we often imagine it as something mysterious, uncontrollable, and deeply emotional. Movies, songs, and novels portray it as a force that sweeps people away without logic or reason. But what if love could be understood, not as chaos, but as a process, a path, a kind of philosophy in itself? Today, we step into a fascinating perspective inspired by Agnes Callard, one of the most discussed philosophers in recent years, whose ideas about desire, aspiration, and self-transformation shed light on how women actually fall in love. Callard is known for challenging the way we think about what we want and why we want it. She argues that our desires are not fixed. They grow with us, they change us, and sometimes they even create us. Love, in her framework, is not just a feeling we stumble into. It's an aspiration, a reaching for something greater than ourselves, a transformation that pulls us into becoming someone new. And when we look at how women fall in love, her philosophy gives us an incredible blueprint for understanding the subtle, silent steps that shape attraction into deep connection. In this video, we'll explore 7 key parts of how women fall in love through the lens of Callard's philosophy. We'll strip away cliches and look at the inner movements of the heart, the shifts in desire, admiration, vulnerability, and transformation that quietly unfold. If you've ever wondered why she looks at you differently, why she hesitates, or why her love feels like a gradual awakening rather than a sudden explosion, you'll find the answers here. According to Agnes Callard, one of the most fundamental human experiences is aspiration, the process of trying to acquire values or desires we don't yet fully understand. Think about learning to love classical music or learning to appreciate art. At first, we might not get it. We listen, we stare, and nothing strikes us. But something draws us in, some curiosity, some faint spark that whispers, "There's something here for me." Over time, we grow into that value, and eventually it becomes part of who we are. Love works in much the same way. For women, the beginning of love is rarely about perfection or instant attraction. Instead, it's about potential, that faint spark that tells her, there is something here worth aspiring toward. She may not even be able to name it, but it captures her imagination. Maybe it's the way you carry yourself with quiet confidence. Maybe it's the fact that you stand by your values when others bend. Maybe it's the way you listen, not casually, but with genuine presence. In this first stage, love is less about romance and more about possibility. She begins to imagine a version of herself that could exist with you, a story in which she becomes more than she is today. Callard's philosophy teaches us that aspiration is a creative act. It shapes not only what we want, but who we become. For a woman falling in love, this spark of aspiration means you represent not just yourself, you represent the chance for her own transformation. And here's the subtle truth. This stage is fragile. It can vanish as quickly as it appears. If the spark is not nurtured, if you show inconsistency, arrogance, or indifference, her imagination will close the door before it even fully opens. But if you embody steadiness, authenticity, and purpose, that spark becomes the seed of something profound. Once the spark of aspiration ignites, women often move into a stage of admiration. This is not infatuation yet. It's something more, grounded. Callard's philosophy emphasizes that admiration is one of the first steps in forming new values. Before we desire something fully, we first admire it from a distance. We look up to it, respect it, and try to understand it. For a woman falling in love, admiration often comes through observing consistency. She sees how you handle challenges, how you treat others, how you live when no one is watching. It's in the way you speak with conviction, but without needing to dominate. It's in the way you laugh with authenticity, not performance. It's in the way you hold discipline in your own life, not to impress, but because it matters to you. Admiration is powerful because it plants the thought, I want to be near this. I want to learn from this. I want to share in this energy. Unlike lust or surface attraction, admiration penetrates deeper. It reaches into her sense of respect. And without respect, love cannot grow. Agnes Callard reminds us that admiration is not passive. It's active, it's engaging, it's a form of reaching. When a woman admires you, she is already beginning to reshape her desires around you. She is testing whether the spark she felt has weight, whether it can anchor her heart. This phase also explains why so many men fail to understand women's love. They try to win her with grand gestures, flashy words, or momentary excitement. But true admiration doesn't come from performance, it comes from character. It's in the thousand small details, the calm in your eyes when chaos surrounds you, the patience in your voice when she hesitates, the integrity that shows up even when it costs you something. As admiration grows, the spark of aspiration solidifies. She begins to see not only what she could become, but also the kind of man who could walk that path with her. And in that recognition, love quietly deepens. As admiration settles in, something begins to shift. Women often move into a stage that Callard's philosophy helps us understand as vulnerability. When she admires you, she places you in a position of significance. And with significance comes risk. This is the stage where her heart begins to soften, not out of weakness, but out of recognition. Agnes Callard tells us that when we aspire toward a new value, we are in a state of uncertainty. We don't fully understand the thing we're reaching for, yet we're drawn toward it. This uncertainty requires openness, and openness always carries the risk of being hurt. For a woman falling in love, vulnerability is the step where she begins to let her guard down. She starts revealing pieces of her authentic self, the ones hidden beneath performance and social masks. This is why many men miss the signs. Vulnerability rarely arrives as dramatic confessions. Instead, it shows up in subtle gestures. The way she shares a story about her childhood, the way she tells you about her fears, the way her laughter becomes less polished and more real around you. It's in the silence she allows to exist without filling it. At this stage, love is not yet certain. It's forming. She is testing whether the space between you is safe enough to expand into. If you handle this with care, she feels seen, valued, and protected. If you dismiss it, mock it, or treat it as unimportant, the fragile seed of love collapses. Callard's framework reveals something crucial here. Love is not passive. It's not something that just happens. It's aspirational. It requires action, risk, and change. When a woman shows vulnerability, she is not simply opening her heart. She is stepping into a process of transformation. She is allowing her identity to expand in relation to you. And this moment, though quiet, is one of the most profound indicators that she is falling. Part 4. Emotional resonance. After vulnerability comes resonance. Callard speaks of desire as something that reshapes us, something that pulls us toward a version of ourselves that doesn't yet exist. In love, this is the moment when a woman feels not only admiration for you, but also a deep sense of connection with you. Resonance is about alignment. It's the experience of feeling that your inner worlds harmonize, that your presence amplifies her emotions rather than silences them. When she talks, you don't just hear her words, you echo them, you expand them, you make her feel that her inner life matters. When you share your thoughts, she feels them vibrating within her, almost as if they were her own. This resonance is not about being identical or agreeing on everything. In fact, some of the deepest connections come from contrast, from the dance of difference. But what matters is the rhythm. That feeling that when you are around each other, your emotional frequencies find a common ground. Agnes Callard's philosophy teaches us that human beings aspire not just to external goals, but to inner growth. Resonance creates that growth by showing her that being with you enriches her soul. She is no longer just admiring from a distance. She is now experiencing herself more fully in your presence. This is why shared experiences become so important at this stage. A late-night conversation under the stars. A laugh over something silly no one else would understand. A walk where silence feels more alive than words. Each moment builds resonance, and with resonance comes the realization. This is not just someone I admire. This is someone who amplifies my life. That realization deepens the process of love into something that feels not only emotional but transformative. Perhaps the most fascinating insight from Agnes Callard is her description of aspiration as self-transformation. To fall in love is not merely to desire someone, it is to become someone new in the process. By part 5 of this journey, a woman doesn't just admire you or feel resonance with you, she begins to shift her sense of identity. Think about it. When people truly love, they start using new language. We replaces I. Decisions are made not just individually, but with consideration for the other. Values subtly realign. Habits shift. The self expands to include another. For women, this shift often begins with imagination. She starts picturing life with you, not as a fantasy, but as a genuine possibility. The small details change. How her days would feel with you there, how her choices would be shaped by your presence, how her dreams would be supported by your energy. She begins to see a future in which her story is no longer written alone. This is not dependency, it's transformation. Callard emphasizes that aspiration is never about abandoning the self. It's about growing into a richer version of it. Falling in love, then, is not losing herself in you. It is finding more of herself through you. And this is the stage where love becomes undeniable. She is no longer evaluating whether you fit her life. She is already beginning to rewrite her life around the possibility of you. Her admiration has evolved into vulnerability. Her vulnerability has turned into resonance. And now that resonance is reshaping her identity. This shift is why love feels so powerful, because it is not simply an emotion. It is a reorientation of the self, a transformation of desire, a restructuring of who we are becoming. And when this shift occurs, she has truly begun to fall. No journey of love is smooth, and Agnes Callard's philosophy helps us understand why. Aspiration, by its nature, involves struggle. We aspire toward values we do not yet fully possess, which means there will be moments of doubt, conflict, and tension. Falling in love is not exempt from this. For a woman, once she has begun to integrate you into her sense of identity, the next step is to test whether this bond can endure pressure. Endurance is not about constant harmony. It is about stability when harmony falters. She wants to know, will you still be steady when emotions rise, when misunderstandings occur, when the charm of the early days begins to fade? Will your presence remain consistent when life throws unexpected challenges? This test is rarely deliberate. It is not as though she consciously thinks, let me see if he can endure. Instead, it arises naturally through life's friction. A disagreement about values, a moment where she feels unheard, a situation where stress or disappointment creeps in. These moments are crucial. They are not the end of love. They are the necessary fire that tempers it. Callard reminds us that aspiration requires persistence. We do not simply decide to acquire new values. We work at them, we stumble, we rise, and we continue. In love, endurance means proving that the bond is not fragile, that admiration does not vanish with one mistake, that resonance is not destroyed by silence, that the shift of identity is not reversed by conflict. When a woman sees that you can stand steady in storms, her trust deepens. Her heart tells her, this is not a passing desire. This is something I can root myself in. Without endurance, love collapses into fleeting attraction. With endurance, love transforms into the groundwork of devotion. Part 7. The surrender into love. Finally comes the stage that completes the journey. Surrender. In Callard's terms, this is the culmination of aspiration, the moment when the value you once only reached toward has become your own. For a woman falling in love, surrender is when she no longer doubts whether her admiration, vulnerability, resonance, and identity shift were real. She knows they were. This surrender is not about losing power or control. It is about acceptance. She accepts that you are not perfect, that the bond will face trials, that uncertainty always remains. But she also accepts that love is worth the leap. She surrenders the need to calculate, to question, to protect herself endlessly. Instead, she opens fully into the experience of love. This is the stage where her actions align with her heart. She begins to prioritize you in ways that are unmistakable. She chooses presence over distraction. She invests in your growth as deeply as her own. She allows intimacy to reach its fullest depth, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and physical. Callard's framework reveals why surrender is so powerful. It marks the point at which aspiration has succeeded. The value of love, once distant and uncertain, has now become part of her life. She no longer aspires to fall. She has fallen. She no longer hopes to love. She loves. And this surrender is not a weakness. It is strength. It is the courage to live vulnerably in a world that often rewards coldness. It is the bravery to say, I choose you, even with the risk of loss. That choice is what makes love not just a fleeting emotion, but a transformative force. Ending. So how do women fall in love? According to Agnes Callard's philosophy, it is not an accident, nor a single lightning strike. It is a process, a gradual unfolding of aspiration. It begins with the spark of curiosity, grows through admiration, deepens into vulnerability, resonates into connection, reshapes identity, endures through trials, and finally surrenders into full love. Understanding this journey does more than explain women's hearts. It also teaches us about ourselves. Love is not something we simply find. It is something we aspire toward. It changes us, remakes us, expands us. And if we approach it with wisdom, patience, and integrity, we discover that falling in love is not just about gaining another person. It is about becoming more fully human. So the next time you wonder whether she is falling for you, don't look for dramatic signs. Look for the quiet ones, the admiration in her eyes, the vulnerability in her words, the resonance in your shared silences. Recognize the transformation as it unfolds, step by step. And if you honor it, protect it, and match it with your own growth, you will not just win her love. You will build something enduring, something that philosophy itself struggles to capture, but the heart knows is real. That is how women fall in love. That is how aspiration becomes love. And that is why, in the words of Agnes Callard's philosophy, love is never the end of the journey. It is always the beginning.